way I got involved in radio is purely by accident. So I was in bands for years, stayed in England doing that for about 3 or 4 years, and then came back to Ireland. Afterwards I ended up playing on TV chat shows, PK Tonight, The John Daly Show, stuff like that. Then after that I ended up doing, of all the strangest jobs, hidden camera stuff, pranking people on the street, a bit like Candid Camera. It was a thing called Just for Laughs. And after that went to work behind the camera as a researcher, and then eventually sent a tape in as a voiceover reel. I wanted to do some voiceover work into a radio station. Sent it in to them and they said, "Did you produce that? Because if you did, we do need a producer." That was 10 years ago. And I now write ads as well as voice them and produce them. A typical day for me starts quite early. So I do my breakfast show on Downtown Country, tune in. And then from 9 to 5 I write adverts. And the day is just a mixture of that and drinking tea. When I arrived in this industry about 10 years ago, I was expecting to be working with lots of tape. It was the first time I ever worked with digital recording, and it couldn't have been easier. Sound is something we see nowadays, and then we can chop bits out and stuff, whereas it didn't used to be like that. You had to listen to it and have a very good ear. I'm not so sure you need as good an ear nowadays to be able to do what most of us do in radio, because it is so easy to do, and that's all thanks to the technology. If you want to come along to a radio station and see what it's like for yourself, number one, you have to find a radio station near you and be really, really nice. Write them a really nice email. Well, today I'm going to show you how to make a podcast. Now, what is a podcast? The name podcast comes from back in the day when there were just iPods and you could download audio broadcasts onto them and listen to shows. But soon people realised you could make your own, and that's what this is all about today. Basically, all you need is an app that will record audio. Now, make sure that before you start, whatever you're going to record your podcast on will play back at a decent sort of quality, because you might have the best idea for a podcast out there and think, this is great, I want to share it with the world. But if they can't hear them, if it sounds muffled, who's going to listen to that for more than 5 seconds? So make sure it does sound clear. Now, how long is your podcast going to be? Well, if it's going to be a podcast about boiling an egg, it takes 3 minutes to boil an egg, but how long does it take to describe how to boil an egg? I reckon I could tell you that in about a minute and a half, and then say, see you next week. That could be a little short podcast. But if I was to talk to you about the Russian Revolution and everything that affected it, I'm sure that would take me a good hour long to explain that. And that's the kind of thing you need to think about when you're doing a podcast. Now, don't think that it's just you sitting at home with a microphone and that's it, you talking to the world. You can involve your friends and you could sit around the kitchen table and have your own sort of chat show if you wanted. It could be you saying, I'm an autograph hunter. Today I'm looking for Drake's autograph. I'm going to try and get it. Follow me on my podcast. And then stop recording. Go and find Drake. Maybe ring up his manager, record that phone call if you get permission. All this requires a bit of planning and, most importantly, a script. Because if you don't have a script before you go anywhere near a microphone, you don't have anything. You must know what you're going to do and how it's going to end. Always make sure that it's aimed at an actual audience who cares about what they're going to listen to.
Fake local news.
Okay, so we're going to try and record a podcast, and for the purposes of this, it's going to be Keithley's weekly nursery rhyme podcast. Every week features a fantastic nursery rhyme. This week's episode will be Mary Had a Little Lamb. First thing we're going to do is start recording. Here's the record button here, that big red one. And it looks like it's recording. Yes, it's picking up level. Hello, and welcome to Keithy's Nursery Rhyme Podcast. Today, Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Stop the record. And there is our piece of audio right there where we can see it. Now, it's not finished, obviously, even though you thought it was brilliant. It needs to be edited because, listen, I'm just going to play back by just tapping this once. And it looks like it's recording. Yes, it's picking up level. We don't need to hear me talking about the whole thing recording, so I'm just going to move the line to there to where I want it to actually start from and get rid of the rubbish I don't need. Tap, tap on the scissors. And there we go. And tap on the little bin right here. It's asking me, do I want to remove? I'm pretty sure. There we go. And now when we listen to the very start, does it go straight into the top of the show? Let's just tap once and see. And welcome to Keithy's Nursery Rhyme Podcast. Today, Mary had a little lamb. That is editing. It's called just manipulating what you've recorded. I was just removing a little bit I didn't need. It was edited out. But I can, of course, take this well-known rhyme and cut it into different bits and rearrange the lines in the wrong order. And welcome to Keithy's Nursery Rhyme Podcast. We'll stop there. Cut it there. We'll take the first line. Today Mary had a little lamb. Fleece was white as snow. It's all been spliced up now and divided. These lines going across the screen show you where I have made the cuts using the scissors. But I think if I go back to this screen, I should be able to move them around. There we go. And now when we play it, the lamb was sure to go. That's not the first line. And everywhere that Mary went, today Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. I think you can hear it's all been sort of jumbled up, and that's just very simply how you can edit things. But what use is editing? Editing is absolutely brilliant, because whenever you make a mistake, like that gap that we don't need, we can just edit it out. My podcast is just all speech, but if you want to add music, it's very simple. All you have to do is hit the music button, funnily enough, just right there. And it will open up either the music library that's on the iPad or whatever device you're using, or other apps is another choice it will give you. It might be something of SoundCloud. But just make sure that whatever music you're going to put on it, you have permission to use it beforehand. Now, when you're done with your podcast and you want to share it to the potential audience that's out there, we need to share it. And how we do that is we hit the share button here. And this particular one gives me the option of sharing the file to SoundCloud. I think we've all heard of SoundCloud. That's just one example of a site that will host your podcast. But there are many others out there if you want to look around and shop around. Look, I've rabbited on enough. It's up to you guys to go and try it yourself. Have a go at podcasting, see how you get on, and who knows, maybe I could be listening to you in the future.